Good morning. I'm still struggling how to manage this very strange circled audience. If I recall correctly, last time I spoke here, the audience was only in front of me. That probably tells me that AI has more interest than Russia. Though, if you follow, for instance, American political news, reading the latest from the Washington, D.C., you also know that if someone wants to learn about computer secrets and new technology, you just have to ask a Russian. But I guess my credentials are not connected to the country of my origin, but more likely to my famous, or some say infamous, matches with IBM Computer. Everybody remembers that, it was a big day, May 11, 1997, when I lost the match. Few people remember that I won the first one in 1996. But before we move on, I followed the very short introduction, and I could smell fear. And that's what happens, when I talk to every audience, whether it's in America or in Europe. By the way, question, how many people here are just really afraid to lose the job to AI? I can tell you there's only one honest person in the room. I think we're at such an early stage of AI entry into our lives. And we should talk about semantics, and we should talk about its, let's say, more philosophical content. And I always tell people that my technological expertise, it's fairly limited, but I know a few things, and I'm more likely a storyteller or a preacher. But even being a preacher, I want to make sure that we talk practicalities, because most of the debates, when you look around, most of the debates about AI, they have some sort of religion passion. You have on one side a small group preaching the salvation through AI. Oh, AI will solve all problems. We'll have to do nothing in the future. Much bigger group talks about the opposite, opening the Pandora box. So it's just unleashing the forces of hell. So we'll all be just redundant eventually. And if you think this way, you're watching too many Hollywood movies. But it's difficult actually to move people away from either paradise or hell and bring them back to our earth and to talk about practical issues, because at the end of the day, AI is a tool, is a technology. It's not a magic wand, but it's also not a Terminator. It's not a harbinger of utopia or dystopia. It's a technology as we had many in the past, and when you look back, there's nothing new happening. Our old technology made us stronger by doing physical labor. It made us faster by helping us to circle the globe or to rocket to the moon. Now, intelligent machines will make us capable of doing anything. Yes, jobs will be lost, absolutely. But the new jobs will appear. It's a normal cycle. The normal cycle that the humanity faced over, maybe not centuries, maybe millennials. Because to be afraid of something we don't know, it's wrong, since most of the technologies that we invented, they didn't have an analog in the nature. Even the simple wheel has no analog. And the way machines do things, it's not reflecting the natural movements. The aeroplanes flying much faster than any bird without flapping their wings. Now, of course, with AI, we're facing another problem. And this problem is that in the past, when we didn't know something, and most people never knew how technology worked, electricity, the phones, but we knew that somebody else could help us to understand it. I didn't know, but he knew. He didn't know, she knew. Now we reached a point where we are facing technology that I don't know, he doesn't know, she doesn't know, probably nobody knows. And that makes us scared. But one of the things that I guess adds to this fear is the name that is widely used, artificial intelligence. While we have no problem with I letter, it's intelligence. Now, A, for me, is just still a big question mark. Artificial sounds frightening because it immediately brings images of aliens, something that doesn't belong to this world, something that might be potentially menacing. I believe that it's more precise to call it augmented intelligence, because at the end of the day, it's about us working with the computers. And that's one of the lessons from my early experience, matches with IBM's Deep Blue, that you cannot beat them, join them. And I think most of you now somehow are working with computers. We don't recognize how much computing power we carry in our pocket or our purse. Deep Blue was a powerful machine. It could reach a speed of 200 million positions per second, which is pretty impressive, even by modern standards. Now, this device is 30 times faster than Deep Blue. It's 1,000 times more powerful than Cray's supercomputer, which many believed 40 years ago was just another miracle. But how we use this, and what is the future of our relations with intelligent machines? This is the big open question. But first of all, we should just recognize that certain things are inevitable. They're just going to happen. AI is not happening in the future, it's here already. And we could see that's how things are gradually changing. Because originally, when you go back to the founding fathers, and then Alan Turing, Claude Shannon, Norbert Wiener, back to the 40s, early 50s, so they thought about computers, so just divided them into two categories. So the type A machines that would be brute force, and they hoped that one day machines would be able to emulate human thoughts. These are so-called type B machines. It's quite interesting that the type B machines never materialized, never became a factor, because most of the computers that we're dealing today, actually all of them, it's so-called type A. They could be as primitive as Deep Blue. When I say primitive, because Deep Blue was not intelligent. It was as intelligent as your alarm clock. They were quite expensive one, $10 million alarm clock. But it's a data crunching machine. Even IBM's Watson, it's far more sophisticated, but it's still data crunching. It's still working with the data that we're providing. But we are now entering the phase where we'll see new generation of computers. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, the latest development that is also connected to the games with a program that run by Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, Google's DeepMind, AlphaZero. How many people? Oh, good. Oh, wow. Excellent. Excellent. Now, but going back to the games, I mean, since I have 15 minutes, I have just to, I'm trying to squeeze typically 45 minutes speech into 15 minutes. So that's why I'm struggling. So now, one of the mistakes that the founding fathers, I feel a bit guilty speaking about mistakes made by these geniuses, but still it was a mistake, a psychological mistake that was made then and it's being made today. When they looked at the game of chess, for instance, they thought that the only way for a machine to prevail in this game would be to, again, emulate human thoughts. Because, imagine, they had access to such a meager computing power. They couldn't believe that you can simply, just keep crunching the data and eventually to outperform humans without outthinking them. Again, machine to prevail, it doesn't have to follow our way of doing things. It could do it differently. But the psychological mistakes that are being made then and being made today all the time is that, for instance, for a machine to beat the strongest chess players, it doesn't have to solve the game. Game of chess is, we could say, mathematically infinite. The number of all legal moves, it's calculated by Claude Shannon himself, is 10 to the 45th power. It's a big number, very big. It's comparable to the number of atoms in the solar system. But it's not about solving the game, it's about winning the game. And winning means you have to make fewer mistakes than your opponent. And humans, even the best humans, we're poised to make mistakes. We're vulnerable. We can lose our vigilance. We could get complacent. We could be upset by whatever, by weather, by market crash, by family affairs. Machine is not. So machine has, I'm not sure we can use the term, but let's call it steady hand. So by being steady, machines guarantees the quality that will be enough to prevail. And same happens with every other issue that we are dealing today with. Basically, anything that we know how we do, machines will do better, because that means we can quantify it and we can come up with some sort of form of algorithm. And anything within the closed systems, machines will use its immense power and will come up with better results. But it doesn't mean that you can immediately transfer the knowledge accumulated in a closed system to an open-ended system. But I tell you, there is not this. I don't see a shred of evidence that is happening. For those who are preaching singularity around the corner, show me. I mean, it's all nice to see these big the robots that can open the door in the lab, and it's just, and anytime it's the viral video appears on the net. My Twitter is just being bombarded by people saying, "Oh, that's the end of humanity." I mean, come on, this is the robot that can open one door in one lab. Yeah, but it's not a Terminator yet. Yeah, so that's why it's very important for us to recognize that there's still fundamental limitations for the machines that will require human participation, because it's for humans to strategize, for humans to understand the result, and actually to make certain corrections. I always quote Pablo Picasso. He said, machines are useless because they can only give you answers. At the end of the day, everything starts with a question. Questions are a beginning, and that's where humans are indispensable. So now going back to this to Alpha Zero, game of Go. I'm not an expert in the Go, but I know a little bit just to sound like an authority. It's far more complex than the game of chess, simply by number of moves, it's a bigger board and many more options. So everybody thought that it would be quite a challenge for machines to crack this game. When I say crack the game, it's actually to beat the humans. Because again, it's not about exhausting all the legal moves, but it's just simply winning the game. So AlphaGo was a program that was designed specifically to play top Go players. And it did extremely well. So it played, I think it totally played 5 games with the strongest player, so it was 4-1 score. Then it played another top player, 2 best players in the world, and it's crushed all the game, crushed completely. I think won all the games. And when I followed the comments, because I was fascinated by the words coming from the top players, other top players saying, "Oh, we couldn't have imagined that such move was possible." And I was almost laughing, because even in the game of chess today, where machines are much stronger than humans, so just to understand the gap between a chess-playing computer, I don't know how many of you just have chess engines. Anybody has chess engine? Okay, good. Okay, so the gap between the strongest chess engine today, Type A machine like Stockfish or Commodore, and Magnus Carlsen is the same as between Magnus Carlsen and a player from international tournament, the ordinary player. So it's a massive gap. So again, because machine has a steady hand, it just doesn't make human mistakes, so it's consistent. Now in Go, it's what was puzzling for me is that the level of top Go players reminded me game of chess, the top players a couple hundred years ago. It's underdeveloped, not because the game is more complicated. So I thought, okay, what's the big deal? So you have chess players coming from 19th century. Of course, if they look at the modern games today, they say, "Oh, we never thought about this move." So that was a triumph. Again, it confirmed my expectations that within closed systems you can always find an algorithm that will prevail. But then, that's important, then Demis Hassabis made the next move, which was quite, quite a breakthrough. They decided to play a match between two versions of AlphaGo. One was the machine that actually played against humans, which is a machine that had human data and its algorithm. And another one they call AlphaGo Zero, which is just AlphaGo algorithm with zero information. Just, that's the rules. Now, anybody knows the score of this match? They played 100 games. Any guess what's happened in this match? AlphaGo Zero, no human data, versus AlphaGo algorithm. Anybody know? You know the score? 100-0, correct. AlphaGo Zero crushed it. Now, that was interesting, and I paid more attention. And I met Demis in London, who was, by the way, at young years, he was a pretty good chess player, about 2250, so just almost master level. We're at stage at the Google's office there, talking about computers. I presented my book, Deep Thinking, and I said during this conversation that, of course, the human knowledge in the game of Go was so inferior to what's in chess, and that's why it probably was a liability. What about doing the same for chess? What if you try to come up with AlphaZero chess? So basically, if you put AlphaZero algorithm to the game of chess and face not human players, but the best computers. So they wanted to run this experiment, and that was quite an amazing result, though of course you cannot repeat it since it required Google's computing power. So in 4 hours and 30 minutes, they ran this program. It played 60 million games against itself. 60 million. But you understand, it's Google's computing power. So this is, you have access to the cloud. So and it taught itself chess, starting from the scratch, with zero information. It's just its own information that it could acquire from these games. I saw the early games, which was just a joke. And then we just, saw that's the games at the end of this loop. And then it played another, it's one of the leading chess engines, Stockfish. I have to say that conditions for the match were not probably favorable to Stockfish, because I guess AlphaZero team wanted to win. No, but it's a long story. So you can improve on the hardware. They can make many improvements. So the Stockfish didn't have access to its opening book. So now it could make the difference. But at the end of the day, even without all of these things, I mean, Stockfish is a deadly force. So okay, I don't want to ask people about the score. So maybe you know the score, because you are the. About 60-30. No, it says 28 wins, 72 draws, 0 losses, which was just quite an amazing accomplishment. No losses, 28 wins. Also, what was interesting is that it totally dominated with white pieces. So that's 25 wins was white and 25 draws, and only 3 with black. It was much closer, which is not typical for chess statistics, because in chess is roughly 53-47 statistics. So that's, again, it changed many of our assumptions about the game of chess. Again, it's not that I was totally surprised, but still I saw something else there. Now, what's important is that the speed of AlphaZero, or the number of options it analyzed, was much less. Basically, it's 1%, 60,000 positions per second versus 6 million. But it didn't have it, because it has created quite a sophisticated system of evaluations based on its own experience. Now, some say, oh, that's the end of the world. But again, let me remind you, it's a closed system. It's a game with the fixed rules. And that's basically, I'm just wrapping up the presentation, that's basically the future of our relations with the computers. We will have to ask the question. We will have to formulate the task. we will have to define the framework, and they'll do the rest. It somehow, it may be a little bit annoying, some say even insulting for our human pride, that we will be reduced to the last few decimal places. But at the end of the day, it's about human-machine collaboration. It's about making sure that our expertise will compensate for machines' deficiency. And the best news, for me, for instance, I'm 55, the very sophisticated machines of the future will not require sort of great technical knowledge. So for those who think that it will benefit only the young generation, I can tell you that it may actually be not the reverse, but it will leave plenty of room for those who can bring expertise, wisdom, because that's what machines will need. Many things they will do on their own, but they will need the right question to be asked, the right framework to be designed, and an ability to interpret the results. Because at the end of the day, it's about, it will still be human function to transfer the information that we can collect in the closed system into the open-ended system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Garry Kasparov, and I will shortly open up for Q&As, and while you register to the speakers list, I have an opening question, and since we are here during the Oslo Freedom Forum, I can't but help asking, what kind of implications do you see artificial intelligence have for human rights and the human rights battle?
Again, it's augmented intelligence. Yeah, but it's the... it's about the general impact of technology on all aspects of our lives, whether social, political. And for those who are still scared about the potential outcome of the machine's invasion of our privacy, I always say that the capacity for evil is still uniquely human. It's not about the Terminator or the Matrix. It's about bad guys having access to this technology and using it for destruction, which, by the way, it's not new in human history. Typically, the first use of any technology is destruction. You start with nuclear bomb, and then you move to nuclear reactor. And you go back, you always see that the humanity, again, had unique capacity of first thinking of destruction before actually turning our best inventions into in a more creative and positive forms. So we are seeing problems now, actually more problems than solutions, while this technology, ironically, invented in the free world, conceived and invented in the free world, they were manufactured in China, most likely, that has been consistently used by the bad guys, by totalitarian or authoritarian leaders to undermine the very foundation of the free world. It's a new challenge, yeah, and I think it's just one of the stumbling blocks. I think again it's psychological. We think that we can solve these problems by imposing more and more regulations. The problem is that if you impose all regulations here, so the process, or actually the progress, will not stop. It will simply move elsewhere. Unlike nuclear technology, AI doesn't require massive investment. You don't have to build reactors. You don't have to invest massively. All you need is just, to move some brains from one country to another. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to move them. You just have to establish links of communications. So we just have to recognize that it's a new challenge and it doesn't have an easy solution. But on the other side, it offers opportunities for individuals. So that, again, blockchain revolution is just, again, I don't know the outcome, but clearly it shows that there are attempts being made to decentralize the systems. And I also think that for those who are panicking about data collection, look, if you provide data, it will be collected, period. So for those who say, how come that my private information now is available? Most likely it comes from people who are willingly signed for face recognition, who are willingly bringing Alexa to their homes, and then they keep complaining that this data is somewhere just floating on the net. So again, I think that we should not try to fight the flood. So it's happening, and you cannot stop it. We should make sure that data collection will not harm customers. And I always remind people that there is a big difference between data collection by Google and by KGB or Stasi. And I think we in the free world can make, and we must make, big corporations responsible for endangering the lives and actually the lives of those who were not fortunate to live in a free country, because the data collected in the USA or in the UK or in Norway, yeah, it could be harmful, but it's not the same when this data is collected in Russia, in Iran, in Turkey, in China, because that could lead to very different consequences. Actually, yesterday I saw that the Russian authorities demanded Apple to remove, if you know, the Telegram, that's the new messenger, from App Store. I'm very curious to see what happens. Again, it will be disastrous if Apple, that was so adamant not to open its device under FBI demands in America. Actually, we're talking about the terrorist telephone, but they thought it would be important to protect the privacy, and I'm on their side. Will bend the rules under the pressure from KGB. Unfortunately, that's happening all the time. I think that's where we should concentrate our efforts, to make sure that the double standards will not be accepted. And these companies, you know, even I understand they may risk some of the business deals, but we all understand. If we have massive public pressure from the free world, it's still far more important for Apple to protect its reputation in America if there are business consequences there than to pretend that they can use different rules while dealing with dictators.
I have noticed one speaker coming on the speakers list. Yes, normally there come very many people in the end, but we have to end in 9 o'clock, so I urge you all to come sooner rather than later. Please, sir.
My name is Johan Baltzersen. I'm the editor of a Norwegian anthology with a translated title, Constitutional Liberty, Lovebirds or Arch Enemies. My question is regarding the term artificial intelligence. You have there a word artificial, and most people don't give much thought to that this intelligence actually is artificial. And people talk about artificial intelligence, but no one talks about artificial wisdom. Your thoughts on that, please, sir? Thanks.
No, I'm afraid that, you know, I opened Pandora box by starting this semantic debate. I'm trying to understand. So, how can you, differentiate between intelligence and wisdom? Yes, wisdom is probably the highest form of intelligence. Again, I go back to augmented. Machines will collect data. Machines will become smarter and smarter. But still, the word wisdom is exclusively human. If you are so interested about the differences between machines and humans and the way we're making decisions and collecting data and analyzing data, I can recommend you read the book of founding father of AI, Joseph Weizenbaum. I think it's 1976. He started the first natural language processing program, ELIZA, in 1964. So it's a prototype of Siri, if you want. So he spent many pages of his book discussing the difference between deciding and choosing. And that somehow maybe answers this question, because he concluded that deciding was computational, because at the end of the day you can always find the reason so why certain decision was made, while choosing is exclusively human, because not necessarily we'll make our decision based on odds. it could include other factors. So that's why I still think that wisdom will stay in the human domain.
I also noticed a gentleman sitting behind there. I haven't noticed anyone else. And again, I remind you that we will end before 9 o'clock, so it's better to come on sooner rather than later. In the end, months. So please speak into the microphone and present yourself.
Hello, my name is Per-Olav, and I work for IBM here in Norway. In terms of compute power and data collection, the technology, in my view, will move fast. This will require, as you say, a certain framework. What is your view of the framework on machine ethics and bias?
So IBM is hiding. Look, again, we go back to the previous question. I don't understand what it means, machine ethics. It's still, again, it's about humans who are somehow involved in the final process, because machines will keep collecting data, machines will become more and more powerful, but again, the danger comes from the human side. So I understand that people are concerned about killer robots and about the destructive ways of using these machines, but we'd rather recognize that in the foreseeable future, machines on their own will not cause us any real danger, unless they are just they're being used by humans that have destructive agenda and clandestine agenda. So we'll see how this moves. I agree that the data collection will continue. One of the biggest issues. It will be. It will be balanced between privacy and security. To the last 2 years, I've been working with Avast Software as a security ambassador, and I wrote many essays about this issue. Because it's for instance, we would like to limit hate speech, but at the same time, so where is this invisible line between the hate speech and the freedom of speech? One of my essays, the title was "Fighting Hate, Saving Speech." It's quite difficult for us to actually find this very narrow path, because we understand that these devices they amplify both good and bad, and unfortunately, the bad always has an advantage. When we talk about fake news, so there's only one way to say the truth and hundreds of ways to lie. Truth is always outnumbered. And of course, with these devices, it's so easy to spread it around. So it will be quite difficult for us to use regulations, state-imposed regulations, because they will eventually hurt those that follow the rules, but will do very little damage for those who would like to break the rules. In my view, is just again, it's for us to find this narrow path, and just to make sure that the fundamental freedoms are not abridged. And also, I recommend people, when they keep asking and pushing this question, that is, we recognize that there are certain things that we do almost automatically because we want to protect our health. It's about basic hygiene. So we wash our hands, we clean our teeth. Now, how about protecting our privacy, protecting our, it's called the digital hygiene. So making sure that we're not, opening every attachment. And again, if you follow these elementary rules, you can probably eliminate 90% of threats that are coming from internet. Not all of them, of course. Many of them are very tricky, but it's the same as is a normal life. So even if you follow all the hygienic rules, you are not immune against some of the serious health problems that could occur even with the healthiest people. But I think it's important for us to recognize that at the end of the day, these machines are offering us so much power, but it also at the same time they make us more vulnerable. And it's for humans just to recognize that if we are willing to exchange our security for convenience, then we might be asking for problems.
I have gotten a few people on the speakers list. I noticed the gentleman sitting here, the gentleman sitting right behind, and also the gentleman sitting right in the end. And I will close the speakers list during this question. So if you want to ask a question, make sure to the speakers list now, please.
Thank you for awesome talk. I'm the General Secretary of the Norwegian Computer Society, and I want to have a follow-up on the IBM question. Yeah. So you said that the ethic part of AI is a problematic one. So should it, if we don't regulate it or think it through, it will be decided by lawyers and insurance companies? Would that be the sound way to go?
I didn't say we didn't have to regulate it. I'm warning against expectations that these regulations will solve all the problems, because it's a fast developed industry, and every regulation requires time. Basically, whatever you're going to do will just will be 1, 2, 3 steps behind the current state of affairs in the industry. And also, going back to the AlphaZero concept, if we look at, say, at Deep Blue, at the classical type A machines, so that machines that crunch the data, if we're patient, if we have a year of our time to spend and look at the 1,000 kilometers of logs, we can always go deep down and find why certain decision was made. You can always explain the decision by analyzing the data that machine has been processing. Now, with the new generation of computers, with this AlphaZero type machines, even Demis Hassabis doesn't know why version 5 plays differently from version 6. It's literally black box. Now, if you want explainability, I have bad news for you. It's again going back to the aeroplanes not flapping its wings. There will be no explainability. If we want productivity, we should give up on explainability. Now, the trick is that for businesses or for state institutions, accountability without explainability is a big issue. But unfortunately, this is a new territory. And if we want to get the best out of this technology, so we should just recognize that there will be less and less information received from the bottom of this black box. So is it a good news or bad news? Depends on the angle of your observation. I simply think it's neither good or bad. It's happening. So that's why let us stop fighting the flood. Let us stop fighting the trend. Let us stop fighting new technology that will make its way anyway. I think it's the regulations should be aimed at the big companies to make sure that they will respect the rules, they will respect the privacy, and they will, at the best of their ability, provide us enough data about this development. But trying to impose regulations on everything is just, again, it will never stop bad guys. Because for anyone who is familiar with the internet, if you're on attacking side, you have a tremendous advantage. Basically, defense is a losing proposition. So you cannot defend your data if somebody wants to actually find a way to get in. The only way to stop the attack is deterrence, is to make sure the opposite side will recognize the consequences. It's like nuclear deterrence. Again, it sounds frightening, but I'm not here to tell you that is the easy solution. It's simply the way it is today. And it will just increase, the complexity of this issue can only increase. So that's why I think we should be very objective. Again, as I said in the very beginning of my presentation, it's neither paradise nor hell. It's our Earth, and it's a technology, it's a tool, and something that we should find the best way to use for our advantage, for a better future.
A short comment from the lady related to this, was it? Okay, and then we take the gentleman behind, and you will be the final speaker.
Hello. Hi, Gary. My name is Bendik. I'm a communications trainer and originally an actor. But I'm a hobby chess player, and that's primarily why I'm here. And my question is related to the how the chess community looks at artificial intelligence and well, kind of digital doping. And is there any relation to how the business world, how societies relate to artificial intelligence and digitalization? Because what we see in chess is that artificial intelligence, when the AlphaZero won the crushing games, I remember chess players saying to me, "This is the end of the world. This is the end of us. How can we continue to play when a machine can learn it in 4 hours and just crush everything?" And as you know, or many of you maybe not, of course, cheating or using digital enhancement in chess is illegal. It's illegal during the tournaments. Is there any way of seeing a way of progressing this, a way of incorporating the digital thinking, the artificial intelligence in the game of chess? And is there any way of maybe letting players maybe once or twice in a game check the evaluation? What are your thoughts on that?
Speaking about cheating, so it's the some of you may be aware that there was the miraculous machine of the 18th century called the Turk. It's invented by von Kempelen. It's a machine that played, it was a hoax, of course, but the machine that played famous people and just was very successful, and it was very impressive. It was not a machine that it was the very clever combination of sliding panels and mirrors that allowed a small size but a strong chess player to hide inside. Now, the irony is that if 250 years ago it was a human who was hiding inside a so-called machine, now humans are trying to hide a tiny computer somewhere. They're in shoes. It's a different way of cheating. Now, as I already said, the gap between a chess engine, forget AI, just a chess engine that anybody can buy and install in his or her laptop, it's much stronger than Magnus Carlsen, just any human player. So you don't need AI just to dominate the game of chess. Now the question is, so why we're still playing chess? I think that it's the same reason why we're still having track and field competitions, though no Usain Bolt of this world can compete with BMW, because it's also exclusively human. We want to see human emotions. We want to see the excitement. And by the way, during the last 10 years, chess has become one of the most popular games in this country. So what? Do you care that you can have a computer? You, looking at the computer screen, can actually find out the mistakes Magnus Carlsen makes. By the way, that's also interesting paradox, is that while people expected that the rising power of the machines will make games less exciting, when you look at the sheer numbers of kids being involved in the game of chess, at the interest of the public, it's the opposite. It's, I don't know, 100 times more popular today than 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And one of the reasons people can actually understand what's happening at the board. When I played Anatoly Karpov in the 80s, 30 years ago, it's even grandmasters that were making commentaries in the press room, they were scared to make negative remarks. They could see we made a mistake, but still they had to be very cautious in explaining that it's a genius idea that nobody could see, because it was like it's like priests in the temple talking about gods playing just on the top of the Olympus. Today, and I have to say it's quite annoying. Today, when you look at the games online, and you see hundreds of, not thousands of players, of course, having their computer at the elbow, saying, Magnus Carlsen made a mistake, and shouting there. So, yeah, I find it's just, it's so diminishing. So, yes. But I have to admit, it brings more people into the game because they understand what's happening. All they just to look at the computer screen. So it's a coin with two sides. So I agree that it's more and more difficult to come up with new ideas because game is quite exhausted. But there are always options to play so-called Fischer chess, 960, with reshuffling the pieces in the opening position. So there's still many options for us to enjoy the game because at the end of the day, it's about two humans playing the game, and it's very emotional. And the story with the rise of the game of chess in this country tells you that it's not about machines, it's about individuals. You have a great player, somebody very charismatic, somebody who just, who rallies a lot of support behind him from, just not from his own country, but from the rest of the world. And that's what makes game popular. So it's about individual contribution, not about machines stepping in and killing the interest for the game.
As expected, people are signing on later rather than sooner. So we have 4 questions I noted and 10 minutes to do them. I have noticed you, sir. You will get the floor in just 1 second. And I noticed you sitting there, and the lady there. And that's how many we will have time for before 9 o'clock. So you have to be a little bit quicker in your answer. Please.
Hi, Lars Svensson, I'm professor of philosophy at Bergen University and Civita. I'd just like to say that I appreciate your non-alarmist approach to this question because it is often framed in very alarmist terms. And I find it striking that questions are often posed as man versus machine, man versus technology, as if technology is something alien to us. But I'd say that technology is probably one of the most human things there is. Technology was here before we became human. Technology made it possible for us to develop into humans when one creature banged a rock against another rock and created a sharp rock. So I would even go as far as saying we did not invent technology. Technology invented us. And I mean technology, like computers, they're prostheses. Like these glasses I'm wearing, it's a prosthesis. It's an extension of my own humanity. So rather than this huge existential threat of how are we to deal with these machines that are in some sense fighting us or potential enemies, we're simply talking about various ways of extending what it means to be human. So rather than these huge existential question whether humanity is to be or not to be, it's simply a set of pragmatic questions as to how we are to deal with various ways of extending what it means to be human. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
First of all, as someone who lives in America for quite a few years, I should tell you that saying man plus machine could bring you into trouble. It's always human plus machine. Yeah, I trained myself. And by the way, it's more precise. So is the yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just it's not human versus machine. It's human plus machine, and I believe that at the end of the day, these new intelligent machines, they will unleash human creativity. So for those, again, who want to bring it back to jobs and industries, I looked at the statistics. I did this speech for McKinsey about 6 or 8 months ago, and according to their research, you look at looking at the U.S. job market. So you look at the jobs with the human median performance. They required only 4% of creativity. 4%, and 29% of human sensing. So basically, most of the jobs today, they involve repetitive tasks. Yes, AI will move on just to take over some rote repetitive tasks in cognition. But what's the difference, between AI taking over jobs from the white-collar sector and the old technology taking over jobs from the manufacturing sector? Or if you go even back 150 years ago, from the technological revolution, basically destroying the agricultural communities. So I think in America, just at the end of the 19th century, about 60% of people just were involved in agriculture. Today it's 2%. Now, something we should recognize is that the jobs don't disappear, they evolve. It's an evolution. Yeah, I don't want to sound callous. Some industries may suffer, but it's for us actually to adjust. So this, just to end on a positive note. So I'm a big, not fan, I'm a big supporter of space exploration. I believe that we're making a huge mistake by abandoning this risky business and not recognizing how much the exploration brings to us. For those who say it's a waste of money, I always tell them that the space race brought us ARPANET, now it's an early form of internet, GPS, and many other things. It's not about the quest itself, but it's about the side effect. And when you look at the 60s, there were so many kids that had a dream of becoming space engineers. Now we saw the effect of the changes in our society that in the 80s, 90s, many kids, they moved from space engineering to financial engineering. And sometimes I'm teasing my audience saying, I hope AI will kill enough jobs in the financial industry to push kids back to the space engineering.
The gentleman there, please.
Anders Serting, I'm a psychology student. And I see that you are not worried about existential threats associated with artificial intelligence, but I see that a lot of experts in the field are very concerned, and not because maybe the chance is very big, but because the consequences would be so catastrophic. So why should we not be concerned when the experts are?
Look, with all due respect to Elon Musk, I wouldn't consider him a great expert in artificial intelligence. He's doing great things. I'm a big admirer of his programs, including space exploration or electric cars. But it's the reason you hear these voices from that side of this debate. It's because it sells. It's the doomsayers are always popular. It's easy, and also again, Hollywood made a huge contribution to that. Yeah, if you follow this debate more closely, you'll find out that if looking at real experts from the industry, it's probably 50-50 split now, and it's gradually changing because we just recognize that future is it's self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep talking about problems, and I'm not telling you there are no problems, of course there are, we will be missing our angle to see the opportunities. And there are many opportunities that will be presented to us. Maybe in 50 years, maybe in 100 years, we'll see some, existential problems. Frankly speaking, I don't care. Because right now I have to rise the public spirit to maximize the positive effect of this revolutionary industry that is changing our lives. Again, it's so easy to scare people because we live at a time of complacency. It's what dominates every business or every family affair. It's risk-averse strategy. So we don't want to do any risk. We want to minimize the risk. We want to manage risk. And we are facing something that is going to change dramatically this algorithm because it offers opportunity, but without us being able to curb the risk. I urge you to be more objective and so just to be calm by reading these apocalyptic predictions, because again, at the end of the day, so if you want to believe that future will be bright, it doesn't mean it will be bright, but you have a good chance of succeeding. But if you believe the future will be bleak, you bet it will be.
Gentleman sitting there.
Good morning. My name is Tobias Mahler. I'm a law professor at the University of Oslo. And I would like to get back to the question of regulation and politics. So far you sounded like the best approach would be just to not do anything, or is there any role for regulation and politics in this? Is there a way in which politics could guide the way towards these positive effects and avoid some negative effects which may be 80 years from now in the future, but which still could be perhaps avoided, or perhaps there's a way to deal with these issues in the future if we set the future right today?
That's a big question, and you only have a minute to ask if you're going to have the last question as well.
Again, I think we should concentrate our efforts, regulators' efforts, on big corporations, and also on the fact that many of them are monopolies. I think it's very important to make sure that these giant corporations that are probably bigger than Standard Oil now, they will not be able to stifle the competition. It's very important for us to keep doors open for so-called garage mentality. So for new Steve Jobs to come up with big ideas. So that's where we should concentrate. And also to hold these corporations responsible for any misuse of data and for any mistreatment of the customers. Again, trying to regulate every aspect of the industry that changes weekly, or if not daily, I think is just it's like fighting the windmills.
Final question.
Okay, Veronica from Norwegian Data Protection Authority, and answer to you also. We all know that GDPR is implemented in UA, and in a few months it will be a reality here in Norway also. And this will take care and regulate also software and programs and AI and deep learning. My question is, have you some thoughts about insight in the AI algorithms, how to take care of the rights and freedoms that the GDPR is telling us?
That's also a very big question, so your final thoughts here.
I'm very skeptical, because it's the regulations of that magnitude can work only if everybody who is a part of the global network will respect them. Now, are these rules being respected by Russians or Chinese or by Iranians? So you're basically trying to regulate a segment, probably still the biggest segment when you look at the free world of the online activities, but you have so many bad players, those that will try to expose the weaknesses of the system. And I don't understand how GDPR can actually stop them from doing it. It's not that I'm against this data protection information, but still, you know, it's quite amazing that you are protecting here. But what about Apple or giving up information to Chinese? Now, collecting all data about Chinese users in China. What about Microsoft giving Skype codes to KGB? So that's a problem. You know, it's amazing that you care only about people who live in the free world, and forget that more than 50% of the population live in the unfree world these days. So that's my biggest concern. So again, I would love to see regulations, you know, that are unified for Chinese, Russians, Turks, Iranians, and Americans and Norwegians. Unfortunately, today the free world pretends that you can do this protection only here, and without recognizing if we speak about human rights, about the equal rights of those who are not fortunate to be born in the free world.